kshera. So we'll say again, this is a halacha that we are all familiar with, that although all parts of avoda must be done by a kohen, the halacha is that shchita is kshera bizar. The halacha is that shchita can be done even with a non-kohen. So anyone who is quote unquote pasul, if they did the shchita is kosher. Why shchita kshera bizarim? Because shchita of a carbon is kosher even if done by non-kohanim, ubinashim, or if done by women, uba'avadim, or with avadim, ubitmeim, and even with someone who is tamei. Va'afilu b'kachek hadoshim. And I will say, interestingly enough, the halacha is that this is true even if we are focusing on over here of kachek hadoshim, which are higher sanctity karbanos. Rashi points out over here as follows: "Ubitmeim b'tamei sheretz ka'amar shelo b'tamei kli delav avatumahu o b'tamei meis kigon shebada kromesh shalkan." So we'll say Rashi just pointing out over here. When we speak about tmeim, we're going to have to define what type of tumah we are referring to. So we'll get to that in the Gemara. But point being is, everyone is kosher for shchita of a carbon. Everyone is kosher for shchita of a carbon. Even tmeim, ubilvad, shelo yu tmeim no gimabasar. We'll say now, however, there is one caveat, that if the person shechting the carbon is a tamei, that the halacha is we don't want the tamei touching the sacrificial meat. Now remember, again, understand what is this referring to? If a tamei touches a live animal, so obviously a live animal is not makabel tumah. What we are concerned about over here is if someone who is tamei is shechting the animal, and then after shchita he touches the meat, that's when there could be a potential concern of conveying tumah ultimately to sacrificial meat. So the Mishnah gives the caveat: as much as a tamei is permitted to go ahead and shecht, but he has to be careful and vigilant not to touch the sacrificial meat after shchita. Lefichach. Therefore, again, I will say now what this means is lefichach. Now that we've established that everyone is pretty much kosher to go ahead and shech the carbon, lefichach hein psulin poslin b'machshava. So we'll say, remember again, these two concepts go hand in hand. If you are kosher to do an avoda, that means that what? That if you have an invalidating thought during that avoda, then what happens? That could passel the carbon. So therefore, in this particular case, what the Mishnah is saying is as follows. Once all of these individuals are kosher to do the shchita, if they have some type of invalidating machshava during the shchita, that would in fact invalidate the carbon. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Last Rashi on the daf. Lefichach hin poslin, as carbon machshava. Therefore, again, any of these individuals who are kosher to go ahead and do the shchita, if they have an invalidating mindset, a pasul mindset, during the shchita, they can invalidate the carbon. So the Gemara says, Rashi says, Im shachtua b'machshava hoil u'ru'uyin la'avoda zu machshavatan machshava. So this is really, on one hand, this is a fascinating halacha. On the other hand, it's a pretty straightforward halacha. On one hand, it's fascinating. Why? Because you could have a situation where someone who is a non-Kohen is going ahead and invalidating a carbon through a pasul machshava. On the other hand, it's not a chiddush. Why? Because once you are permitted to engage in a particular type of sacrificial service, then by definition you have the ability to pasul it with an erroneous mindset. Top of Lamed Beis. V'kulan shekiblu es hadam. And I will say any of these individuals, Rashi says, v'chulan is hapsulin. Any of these psulin, any of these people who are apostle, who did Kabbalah, who received the blood, chutz lizmano, v'chutz limkomo, and I will say they received the blood with a kavana ultimately again to do some part of the service outside of the correct time, which would be pigul, or outside of the correct place. So we'll say, so now, this is a progression. Mishnah tells me at first that what? Everyone is kosher to go ahead and do shchita. Okay, now really, so that license ends at which point in time? At shchita. So now what happens? Let's say these same individuals went ahead and did Kabbalah. They went ahead and they received the dam hanefesh, the blood spurting from the neck of the animal. They went ahead and they received it in the kli. That is the avodah of Kabbalah. And I will say, now what happens? Not only did they go ahead and they do Kabbalah, but what? They had a wrong mindset when doing Kabbalah. So I'll say, what's the halacha? So what do we do now? This is actually quite interesting. So the Gemara says, Im yesh dam hanefesh yachzor hakosher v'yikabel. So the Mishnah says as follows. Well, if there is still more dam hanefesh, if there is still more lifeblood, so if there's still more blood spurting out of the animal, then don't worry. All we need is what? A bona fide Kohen to come along and once again receive the blood for the sake of doing the avoda. So this is actually quite interesting. What the Mishnah is saying is as follows. The fact that a pasul went ahead and did Kabbalah, Rabosai, does not invalidate the avoda. It's actually quite interesting. So even though, again, I'm a zar, so I'm permitted to do the shechita. I did the shechita. I did such a good job with the shechita. I said, hey, I can do this. Let me do the Kabbalah also. Only one problem is I'm not allowed to do that. So fine, but I did it. Not only did I do it, I had a wrong mindset. So we'll say, what does the Mishnah say? It's okay. As long as there's more dam hanefesh, let another Kohen, let a Kohen, a kosher Kohen come along and do the appropriate Kabbalah and remedy that which I did. So the incredible chiddush over here is my involvement in an avoda that I am not allowed to be involved with does not passel the karban. As long as there's more dam hanefesh, so all I need is a Kohen to come along, do the avoda, and we are good. Look at Rashi just a moment. Im yesh dam hanefesh, od bebehema, yachzor hakosher v'yikabel v'yizrok hakosher, she'in machshavton shel elu pal sultan b'kabbalah, lefi she'in ru'uyin la, ve'in machshava poselas ela b'misha ro'i la'avoda. Dichsiv hamakrivo so lo yechashiv paray lakrav akosim davar. So we'll say there's a very simple calculation here, says Rashi. Rashi says the only time that machshava is posel is when you are roi to do the avoda. But if you are not roi to do the avoda, then your erroneous mindset in no way compromises anything. That's it. I will say, I, a non-Kohen, if I have an erroneous mindset by shchita, I can compromise the avoda. If I have an erroneous mindset by Kabbalah, I cannot because I'm not right for the avoda. Now again, obviously, my Kabbalah is meaningless. So there has to be a proper Kabbalah. So I need a Kohen to go back, get more dam hanefesh if there is some, and do the Kabbalah again. And of course, the inference is what? What if there's no more dam hanefesh? Then what? Then we're done. Unfortunately, again, then the carbon will be possible if there's no more dam hanefesh. So the Gemara goes weiter. Kibel akasha v'nasan lepasel yachzir lekasher. Similarly, Rabbi say, let's say a Kohen does the Kabbalah. So a proper Kohen does the Kabbalah, but then he goes ahead and he hands off the blood to a pasul. Don't ask why. He just does it. So I say, so the Kohen, he says to a pasul, hold this, right? Hold this for me. So I say, so what's the halacha? As long as the pasul gives it back to the Kohen, ultimately, again, the avoda will be kosher. The novelty, again, we'll see the novelty in each of these rulings, but again, the novelty over here is that even though you had a pasul kind of intervene in the avoda, it doesn't pasul the avoda. We just need the pasul ultimately to give it back to the kosher. Kibel biyamino. Similarly, what happens if the Kohen does Kabbalah in his right hand, which is appropriate? The nasan l'smolo, and then he puts it in his left hand. In other words, he takes the utensil that he received the blood in, he puts it in his left hand. Then what's the halacha? Yachzir liyamino. He has to put it back in his right hand. Kibel b'kli kodesh v'nasam b'kli kol. Similarly, let's say the Kohen did Kabbalah in a kli sharis, in a sanctified utensil. Then he transferred the contents of that utensil into a kli chol, into an unconsecrated utensil. So what's the halacha? Yachzir lekli kodesh. You have to return the blood back to the kli kodesh. So we'll say, again, the novelty over here is I would have thought that if you interrupt the avoda in any way with some quote-unquote a non-kosher step, so that halacha l'maisa that would invalidate the avodah. The Mishnah is teaching that's not the case. As long as you could remedy that which you have done, you're good to go. Similarly, nishpach menakli ala ritzba va'asva. Let's say the Kohen did Kabbalah. Now what happens? He's doing holacha. He's going in and transporting the blood to the mizbeach, and then what happens? He trips and he spills the blood. So what's the halacha? Va'asvo, and he was able to regather it back up. Kosher. We'll say the halacha is, however you're regathering blood, we'll discuss. So again, the avoda will still be kosher. Nasna, we'll say, so this case we saw before. Nasna agabi akevesh, shelo keneged hayisod. We'll say, remember again, blood applications are done on the mizbeach. Now the truth is, more often than not, they are done on the side of the mizbeach. The only variable is, are they done above the sikra, the red line, below the sikra, below the red line? Let's say in this case over here, the individual, the Kohen, placed the blood on the ramp of the Mizbeach. Now, there is no such thing as a blood application that's done on the ramp. This is a mistake. So he went ahead and he applied it on the ramp, shelo kineged hayisod, not opposite the base. So we'll get into this also in this parak, that the idea over here is on the side of the Mizbeach, there was like a protrusion, like a trim. And we'll say they called that the base. So what happens if they went ahead and the coin put it on the side of the Mizbeach, but ultimately again not opposite the base, or nasanes hanitanin lemata lemala, or abosai, you went ahead and you took blood applications that were supposed to be done below the line and you placed it above the line. Ve'es hanitanin lemala lemata, or you took those things that are placed below the line, above the line, and you placed them below the line. Or ve'es hanitanin bifnim b'chutz, or abosai, you took blood that was supposed to be sprinkled inside the Beis HaMikdash and you sprinkled it outside. Ve'es hanitanin b'chutz bifnim, or if you were to go ahead and sprinkle the blood that was supposed to be outside, you did it inside. So we'll say in all of these cases, what's the common denominator? You did a wrong zrika, right? You did an erroneous zrika. You messed up on the zrika. So what do you do in this case? Not a problem. Im yesh tam hanefesh yachzor hakosher v'yikabel. So we'll say good news is, where there is more blood, there is more possibilities, right? So the halacha is, as long as there is more dam hanefesh, so not a problem. We just simply go back, get more blood, and do another zurika. Okay, good, beautiful. So we'll say, so bottom line, takeaway messages from the Mishnah. Shchita is kosher by everyone. Because it's kosher by everyone, if anyone has an erroneous mindset by shchita, they could invalidate the shchita, they can invalidate the carbon. Well, let's say if halacha lemaisa, again, the zar or the apostle went ahead and did Kabbalah, so again, obviously that is illegal, but the way to remedy it is if there's more blood, it goes back and does the Kabbalah again. Anytime, ultimately, again, you intervene in the carbonic process with someone with a non-kosher step, all the Kohen needs to do is redo the step, and ultimately, again, the carbon will be kosher. If zrika was done in an erroneous fashion, as long as there is more dam hanefesh, we can redo the zrika. Good. So we'll say the Gemara now is going to focus on the first statement in the Mishnah. So remember again, the Mishnah said, Kol hapsulin sheshachtu shchitasen kshera. Anyone who is a pasul, they will say in this case, pasul means anyone who is not fit for avoda. So anyone who is a pasul, who did shchita, ultimately again their shchita is kosher. I will say, now the lashon of sheshachto means what? That they did shchita, which the Gemara infers to mean shachto diaverin lechatchila lo. They will say the word shachto means that anyone who is pasul, who shechted, if they did the shchita ex post facto, then what? The shchita is good. I will say, what do you see from here? You see from here that is only bidi eved. Lechatchila, ultimately, again, we would not want one of the psulim ultimately to go ahead and do shchita. So the Gemara says, or minu. So we'll say, so this is a very important yesod. The Gemara is inferring over here, the lashon of sheshachtu means they did shchita. Whenever the Mishnah phrases a halacha as something that has already been done, so generally what that means is, we're okay that it's done bidi eved, but lechatchila, we're not so happy that it was done this way. So what you're telling me is, that if shchita was done by a pasul, bidi eved, it is kosher, but lechatchila, we would rather have a kohen do the shchita. The Gemara says, is that true? Is that true? I thought that even lechatchila, a non-kohen could do shchita, to which the Gemara says, Minhu. So Gemara is going to challenge this. V'shachat, so we'll say the pasuk says, V'shachat as ben abakar lefnei Hashem, v'hikrivu b'nei Aaron hakohanim es adam, v'zarku es adam lemizbeach saviv. So the pasuk says, V'shachat, he shall shechtet, shchita b'zar kshera. Ultimately, again, a shchita, we'll say, of a carbon, is kosher even with a non-kohen. Shashchita kshera b'zarim, u'b'noshim, u'be'avadim, u'b'tmeim, va'afilu b'kodshei kadoshim. Because the the way we paskin is how that shchita is kosher with a non-kohen, not only just with a non-kohen avosai, but even again with women and with avodim and with tmeim and even kodshei kadoshim. In other words, everyone is kosher to go ahead and do shchita. So we'll say, so the Gemara says this price is quoting this idea. L'chatchila, L'chatchila. I want to point out what the Gemara is focusing on over here is that the Torah makes no mention of a Kohen by shchita. As we're going to see in just a moment, the Kohen is really mentioned only in conjunction with the process of Kabbalah and on. When it comes to shchita, there is just a generic term of the shachat. What we're learning out from that is everyone is kosher b'shchita. Oh, eino ela bekohanim amrit. Or maybe you'll say no. Then maybe the obligation of shchita, or I should say the concept of shchita, is also only by kohanim. V'chime ayin basa. Now, why would you say that? What would make you say that ultimately, again, shchita can only be done by kohanim? So the Gemara says, Michlal shene'emar va'ata ubanecha itcha tishmuras kunaschem. So we'll say the fact that the pasuk says, the Baruch Hu says to Aaron, va'ata ubanecha itcha, you and your sons with you, tishmuru es kunaschem l'chol devar hamizbeach. So we'll say, Baruch Hu says to Aaron and his sons, or she says to Aaron, you and your sons shall guard the covenant of the Kuhuna, l'chol devar hamizbeach, for everything to do with the mizbeach. I might have thought what? Yochol af b'shchita. I might have thought maybe that also refers to shchita as well. In other words, maybe that's mamish everything. Talmud Lomar, v'shachat es ben habakar lifnei Hashem, v'ikrivo. So we'll say ultimately, what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says v'shachat es ben habakar lifnei Hashem. The pasuk says he shall shecht the ben habakar, the calf, in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'ikrivo, and then it shall be offered. Mikabala ve'ilach mitzvah b'kuna. Mitzvah. Mitzvahs kuhuna. So we'll say, again, as I mentioned before, the way the pasuk reads is as follows. V'shachat es ben habakar lefnei Hashem, v'ikrivo b'nei Aaron HaKohanim es hadam, v'zarko es hadam al mizbeach. So we'll say, amazingly enough, the pasuk really only mentions kuhuna in conjunction with Kabbalah and on, which teaches you that when do you need a Kohen? From Kabbalah. If I only need a Kohen from Kabbalah, then what does that by definition tell me? That shchita is kshera bizar. Mikabbalah ve'elach mitzvahs kahuna. So we'll say ultimately again it is only from Kabbalah and on that you need a Kohen. Limit ala shchita shekshera b'chol adam. Ultimately again you learn that shchita is kosher by all people. Shabbos, I say here, by the way, this is the limud. This is the limud. This is the source that teaches me that shchita is kshera even bizarre, even with a non-kohen. But I will say, not only is it kosher by a non-kohen, but it sounds like what? It's kosher even what? L'chatchila. Right? L'chatchila it's even kosher. It's not like a b'diavad. This l'chatchila is kosher, to which the Gemara says, you're right. So we'll say, remember again, this is problematic because the Mishnah uses the lashon of kol hapsulin sheshachtu. Sheshachtu means ex post facto. They shechted, which sounds like it's kasher b'diavad but halachatchila. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Hu adin dafi l'chatchila nami. In reality, a zar is even permitted to go ahead and shech l'chatchila. So says the Gemara, umishum de kabayla misna tmeim. I will say the only reason that the Mishnah employs a bidi eved lashon by a zar's shchita is why? Because we need to bring in the case of Tameim. I will say the case of Tameim is the case ultimately again where someone who is Tamei is shechting the carbon. So we'll say, remember, what was the halacha by someone who's Tamei? So the lechatchila lo. A Tamei Rabosai, again, ideally, lechatchila, we do not want the Tamei to go ahead and shech the carbon. Why don't we want the Tamei to shech the carbon? L'gzeira shema yigu babasar. Ultimately, out of concern that the Tamei is going to touch the meat, therefore, Tana sheshachtu. So we'll say, this is amazing. What the Mishnah is saying is as follows. The Mishnah is teaching me that lechatchila, psulin are permitted to go ahead and shecht. So lechatchila, shchita ksher. So what I will say is an incredible halacha. What the Gemara is teaching me is, even lechatchila, there's no like hidr mitzvah to go ahead and get a coin for shchita. Now again, historically, I don't know how it happened. I don't know if more often than not the shchita was just done by the coin because they were around. They don't know. But lechatchila, we paskin that shchita is kshera bizar. If it's lechatchila, then why does the Mishnah use the lashon of sheshachtu, which is lashon of bidi eved? To which the Gemara answers what? We have to use lashon of bidi eved because of the tamei. Lechatchila, we would rather the tamei not shecht. Why would we rather the Tamei not shecht? What's wrong with the Tamei shechting? And the answer is nothing. There's nothing wrong with the Tamei shechting. The issue is not a shchita. The issue is what? A concern that after the shchita, he may come and touch the sacrificial meat. And if after the shechita he touches the sacrificial meat, that will be a problem for us. So because l'chatchila, we don't want the tamei shechting, we use a lashon of b'di eved by all of the psulim. But in fact, by all of the psulim, l'chatchila, they are permitted to shecht. It's just the tamei who shouldn't l'chatchila shecht. The tamei b'di eved shapir dami. Is that true that a tamei b'di eved, it's okay if he shechted or minhu? But let's ask the following kasha: v'samach v'shachat. So we'll say now we're assuming that even a tamei l'chatchila shouldn't shecht, but b'di eved can shecht. Now the Gemara is questioning that assertion as well. Are we really okay with a tamei shechting even b'di'even? Let's say Zakasha. We'll say first wide line lamed beis medalef or minhu v'samach v'shachat. We'll say the pasuk speaks about smicha and shchita. Smicha means leaning on the animal. We'll discuss this. Mas smicha b'torim af shchita b'torim. We'll say just like smicha has to be done only with someone who is tahar. Ultimately, what? Ultimately, shchita could only be done by someone who is tahar as well. So we'll say, what do you see from here? You see from here that even b'di eved, a tamei cannot go ahead and shecht. To which the Gemara answers, midrabanan. That halacha, I will say, that ideally we only want someone who is tahar to shecht. That is a din drabanan. Midaraisa, a tamei is absolutely fit to go ahead and shecht the sacrificial animal. Midrabanan, we say that we would rather not have a tamei, lest he come to go ahead and touch the sacrificial meat. So says the Gemara, let's back up a second. Maishna smicha. We'll say, from where do you know that smicha ultimately again requires the person who's doing the smicha to be tar? In other words, we'll say, where do we see that concept from? So now watch this. Dichsiv lifnei Hashem. So we'll say, ultimately again, there's a very simple reason. Because by smicha, the pasuk says lifnei Hashem, that it has to be done before God. Now I will say, Rashi actually over here on this piece is on Amud Beis. So if you look at the Divrei HaMaskal right there, D'chsiv lifnei Hashem, we'll say turn to Amud Beis for just a moment. V'shachat as ben Abakar tap Rashi lifnei Hashem, D'chevon deba'inan take off l'smicha shchita, ein smicha mi bachutz, u'shchita mi bifnim. Ela afa smicha bifnim ve'in tamei nichnas ba'azara. So we'll say the Gemara says something very interesting. How do I know that for smicha could only be done by a tahar? So there seems to be a very utilitarian reason. Pasuk says that smicha has to be done lifnei Hashem. Lifnei Hashem, we'll say we assume means what? Inside the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash. You can only come into the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash if what? If you are tahar. Therefore, by definition, someone who is tamei cannot go ahead and do smicha. To which the Gemara says, shchit, back to the Gemara. 4 lines up from the bottom. Shchita nami haksiv lifnei Hashem. So we'll say, but smicha also says it has to be done lifnei Hashem, which would seem to indicate that what? That lamaisa, again, you can only be tar to do shchita as well. Efshar da'avid sakin aruka. V'shachit. So we'll say, no, you could do shchita even if you're tamei. How can you do shchita even if you're tamei? We'll say a long knife. Even if you can't stand inside the azara, right? Even if you can't stand inside the courtyard because you are tamei, so lemaisa, again, what? You could shecht with a long knife. That Rabbi would allow you to do shechita of an animal that is standing in the azara, even though what? You are tamei and standing on the outside. Smicha nami avshar de ma'ayil yodei v'samich. But I say something by smicha. If I'm tamei, I could stand outside the azara, just put my hands into the azara, rest my hands on the head of the animal, do smicha like that. To which the Gemara says, kasavar bias b'miktzas shma bia. Rabbi say the Tana over here holds that any type of entry into the azara, even if it's not a full body entry, is still considered to be entry into the azara. So I said the act of putting my hands into the azara, even if what? Even if my body is outside, is still a problematic entry into the azara. Rav Chisda Masni Ibcha. We'll say Rav Chisda has the opposite exchange, or the opposite version of this. He says like this: V'samach v'shachas. So we'll say his limud goes in the reverse direction. So the pasuk equates smicha and shchita. Ma shchita b'tahorin. Just like shchita, Rabbi say, can only be done by someone who is tahar. Af smicha b'tahorin. So to smicha can only be done by someone who is tahar as well. But I don't understand. Ma'ishna shchita. How do I know that shchita can only be done by someone who is tahar? Dichsiv lifnei Hashem. Because the pasuk says Lifnei Hashem. The way we're interpreting Lifnei Hashem as what? Is something that must be done in the Azara, in the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. The only way to enter into the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash is if you are tahor. Shechita has to be done Lifnei Hashem. So smich Amud Beis will say smicha nami ksiv Lifnei Hashem. But one second, by smicha it also says that it has to be done Lifnei Hashem, which will say indicates to me that what? That smicha could also only be done by someone who is tahor. Well, smicha is different. Why? Afshar de ma'ayil yodei v'samich. Well, say smicha, it's possible that although you can't enter with your body into the Azara, what can you do? You can put your hands into the Azara and that's fine. Shchita nami afshar da avid sakin arucha v'shachit. So we'll say I could also do shchita. I can do shchita. How can I do shchita? Even if I'm tamei, I stand on the outside, get a nice long knife, and do shchita like that. To which the Gemara says, Hamani, whose opinion does this reflect? Shimon Hateimanihi. We'll say this reflects the opinion of Shimon Hateimani. What does Shimon Hateimani say? This sanya v'shachat es ben habakar lifnei Hashem. The pasuk says, you shall shecht the calf in front of God, v'lo hashochet lifnei Hashem. So we'll say the Rabban on the Tanakama darshins that what's the only thing that has to be done lifnei Hashem? The actual shchita. But who doesn't have to be lifnei Hashem? The shochet doesn't have to be lifnei Hashem. But so what does that mean? The shochet doesn't have to be lifnei Hashem. The shochet does not have to be in the Azara, which means that if the shochet wants to stand outside of the Azara and what? Utilize a long knife to go out and do the shchita, that such a carbon will be kosher. So Shimon Hateimani Omer. So we'll say, so first of all, again, you're beginning to see, I just want to point out, even though we just said before in our Mishnah that someone who is tamei has the ability to go out and do shchita, if you notice again, we did not discuss the mechanism through which that occurs. Remember again, shchita in a normal situation is not a normal situation. Shchita is happening inside the Beis HaMikdash. Someone who is tamei can't enter into the Beis HaMikdash. That's why if you notice again, and we're going to put all of these pieces together, but Rashi pointed out that dafka the tumah we're talking about over here is tumas sheretz, which is a lower form of tumah. We'll get back to this, but I will say the point over here is as follows. We're now beginning to see that this is a much bigger machlokas, right? And the bigger machlokas is the definition of lifnei Hashem. Who does the lifnei Hashem go on? Does the lifnei Hashem go on the carbon? That the carbon has to be inside the Beis HaMikdash, but that shochet does not, or does it go on the shochet himself? So Shimon HaTeimani clearly said that what? Shimon HaTeimani Omer, Minayin Shu Yadav Shal Shochet Lifnei Min HaNishchat. How do we know, literally, that the hands of the shochet have to be in front of the nishchat, in front of the carbon, which I will say is another way of saying, how do I know that the shochet himself has to be inside the Beis HaMikdash? Talmud Lomar, V'shachat es ben habakar lifnei Hashem. The pasuk says, he shall shechta ben bakar lifnei Hashem, shochet es ben habakar yeh lifnei Hashem. So we'll say, Shimon HaTeimani is of the opinion that what? The shochet must be inside the Beis HaMikdash. Now, if the shochet, inside the Azar, inside the courtyard, if the shochet has to be inside the Beis HaMikdash, what does that by definition tell you? That he must be tar, that he can't be tamei. That someone who is tamei cannot engage in the shchita. Amr ula amr eish lakish. Tamei shehichnis yadolifin. So we'll say, so now what we have over here is as follows. Now what we have over here is a machlokes about the ability of someone who is tamei to be a shochet. The Mishnah told me I can. Presumably the way that happens is with sakin aruka, a long knife. Shimon HaTeimani says no. A shochet must be lifnei Hashem. A shochet must be inside the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore if the shochet ultimately again is tamei, he cannot do the shchita. So we'll say, remember, so if the shochet is tamei, apparently there are two ways technically he can pull off the shchita. One is sakin aruka, a long knife. The other, I will say, is the possibility of ultimately just putting his hands inside with his body staying outside. So we saw that, at least according to some, the prohibition of a tamei to enter into the Beis HaMikdash, I will say, is with his body. But if he just goes ahead and inserts his hands inside, it could be that would not be a violation of a tamei entering into the Beis HaMikdash. Now, along those same lines, the Gemara jumps on that. Amr ulam reish lakish. Tamei shehichnis yado, or yadav, lifnim, a tamei who inserts his hands into the area of the Beis HaMikdash, loke, gets malchus, shene emar, b'chol kodesh lo siga. Ultimately, again, the pasuk says he shall not touch any kodesh, referring to a tamei. Makish bia lenegia. But say ultimately again, well, the rest of the pasuk is b'chol kodesh lo siga ve'ela mikdash lo yavo. So we'll say the Torah equates touching with entering. How so? So makish bia lenegia, manegia b'mikdas shmanegia. We'll say just as ultimately again, even a little bit of touching, so to speak, constitutes touching. In other words, even if the person who's tamei just touches the kodesh with one finger, that's called an act of touching. Af bia b'miktas shma bia. So to what Rabbi say, entering, even just a little bit of entering, is called entering. So therefore, even just inserting one's hands into the kodesh, ultimately again, is considered to be a violation, ultimately, of a tamei entering into the Beis HaMikdash. So Rav Oshia raised the kasha to Ula. Mitzora. So we'll say, so now what we're saying is as follows. According to Ula, a tamei is not permitted even to insert his hands into the Beis HaMikdash, because essentially what we call is a bia b'miktas is shmei bia. Any amount of entering, any part of your body that enters the Beis HaMikdash, while tamei is considered to be a violation of a tamei entering into the Beis HaMikdash. So now raise the kasha on that. Eisi Rav Oshia l'Ula. Rav Oshia raised the kasha. What's the kasha? We'll say, mitzora shechal shmini shel aliyos b'erev Pesach. So now we get into a very interesting case. What about a mitzora who's eighth day? And we'll say now the halacha is a mitzora has an 8-day purification process. On that eighth day, that's when his right thumb and his right toe and his right earlobe are smeared with the oil, right? And that's part of his purification process. Now, mitzora shechal shmini shel aliyos b'erev Pesach. The person under normal circumstances. So, let me read it. So, mitzora, whose eighth day fell out on Erev Pesach. So we'll say, look at Rashi for just a moment. Shechal shmini shelo, v'hayelo hayom likanis laharabayis, lechalal shar nikanor, shelo niskadesh lahachnis yadav labonos. So we'll say the case over here is as follows. The Mitzora's eighth day. Now on his eighth day, that's when his purification process occurs. So we'll say, as we're going to see before, the Mitzora has a little bit of an interesting anomaly. Why? Because halacha l'maisa, so he has to go ahead and he has to come to the Beis HaMikdash for the application of the blood and the oil, yet he's tamei. He's not permitted to enter into the Beis HaMikdash. So how do you go? But yet the applications have to be done inside the Beis HaMikdash. So as we'll see, he comes outside to a place called Shar Nikanor, one of the gates called Shar Nikanor, where the entranceway of that gate was never sanctified. So he could stand there. That's called entry into the Beis HaMikdash, but yet he's not entering into the Beis HaMikdash tamei. So we'll say the case over here is it's the eighth day of the Mitzora's purification process. Under normal circumstances, he would come to Shar Nikanor and he would be purified. But we have a little bit of a bump over here. What's the bump? V'ra'a kari bo bayom. We'll say he has a seminal emission that day, the eighth day. V'tavel, he goes to the mikvah. Now, under normal circumstances, what's the halacha? So a Baal Keri is not permitted to come to the Beis HaMikdash on the day of his emission. He goes to the mikvah, and Herav Shemesh, that night, he is permitted to enter into the Beis HaMikdash. What's the problem? It's Erev Pesach, which means that if the Mitzora doesn't do his purification process that day on the eighth day, and he waits until nightfall, then what? He missed out on the Karban Pesach. So we'll say, so in this case over here, so remember, as a Mitzora, he's permitted to come to the Beis HaMikdash on day 8. So everything is going to be fine. He's going to have his Tara as a Mitzora, then he was going to do his Karban Pesach. The ripple is, he becomes a Baal Keri, he goes to the mikvah. Technically speaking, a Baal Keri can't come until that night. He can come to this until that evening. What's the problem? That evening already he missed the window for Karban Pesach. So what happens under those circumstances? So says the Gemara, Amru Chachamim, Afa pi she'in tvol yom nichnas, zen nichnas. Even though under normal circumstances, I will say a person who went to the mikvah for his Keri emission can't go ahead and come into the Beis HaMikdash, we let this individual come into the Beis HaMikdash. Why? Mutav yavo aseh sheyesh bo kares, v'yitcha aseh she'en bo kares. For it is better, Abosai, for an aseh that has kares associated with it, to set aside an aseh that doesn't have kares. So we'll say, what's the aseh that has kares associated with it? Karban Pesach. Right? The halach is if you fail to perform Karban Pesach, ultimately again, you are chayiv karis. It's an asay shishbo karis. So better for an asay that has karis, i.e. karim peksach, to come and set aside an asay that does not have karis. Which Rabbi say is the asay ultimately of tvul yom, right? That's someone who went to the mikvah but still requires herav shemesh, that he can't come to the Beis Hamikdash. That's the violation of an asay that doesn't have karis. So very simply put, Karim Pesach is going to set aside the asay that prohibits a bal keri from ultimately coming to the Beis Hamikdash. V'Rebbi Yochanan Amar Dvar Torah afilu asay bo. Rabbi Yochanan says, what are you talking about? That a bal keri ultimately again cannot come to the Beis Hamikdash. So we'll say that's not even an asay. That's not a doraisa. Shene Emar. We'll say, where does the prohibition of a bal keri ultimately not coming to the Beis? Where does that come from? Shene Emar. Vayamod Yehoshaphat Bekal Yehuda v'Yushalayim beBeis Hashem mefnei hachatzer hachadasha. We'll say the pasuk says that Yehoshaphat is standing with Kal Yehuda in Yerushalayim in the house of Hashem before the new courtyard. My chatzer hachadasha. We'll say, what's the new courtyard? Rabbi Yochanan, bless you, Shechid Shuba Dvarim Harbe. We'll say it was the place where they were mechadish many new halachas. What's one of the halachas they were mechadish? Va'amru Tvul Yom Al Yikanis Lemachan Elevia. We'll say one of the things they were mechadish was that what? Et Tvul Yom, which means someone who went to the mikvah but still requires herav shemesh, the setting of the sun, like a bal keri, should not enter into Machan Elevia. We'll say, what is Machan Elevia? Machan Elevia is the harabayis. It's the harabayis. So what do you see from here? You see from here that the prohibition for a Tvul Yom, someone who went to the mikvah but is waiting for nightfall, like a bal keri, to enter into the harabayis, enter the Beis Hamikdash, is not even a doraisa. That's a dirabanan. So therefore, it goes without saying that what? That if you have this case of the Mitzora, who is on his 8th day, but he becomes a bal keri, he went to the mikvah for his keri, and all he needs to do is come to the Beis Hamikdash to be purified from his Mitzora, so he can do the Korban Pesach. It goes without saying that he should be able to come to the harabayis. V'i amrit bia b'mikdas shma bia. It will say ultimately again, if you say that what? If you say that coming into the Beis Hamikdash, we'll say if you say that any entry into the Beis Hamikdash is problematic, so heichi ma'ayil yadei b'bono. So we'll say, if you say that if you are tamei, even putting your hands into the Beis Hamikdash is considered to be entering into the Beis Hamikdash in a state of tumah, then what? Then how does the Mitzora go ahead and put his hands? Right? The Mitzora has to insert his right toe, his right thumb. How does he insert that into the Beis Hamikdash ultimately to go ahead and become tahor? To which the Gemara says, "Idi v'idi aseh sheyesh bo karisu." Ultimately, again, I don't understand both of these things, meaning the idea of the Mitzora of Korban Pesach, but also of the Mitzora becoming tahor, both aseis that have doraisa. Amar lei mitunach. He says, I'll answer you literally from your bundle. Shiny Mitzora, hoil v'hutar litzaraso, hutar likirio. So I'll say ultimately says the Gemara as follows. That once, essentially the Gemara answers is like this. A Mitzora has a license. See, they will say, Mitzora might be ultimately the exception to this rule. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us the mechanism or the process through which the Mitzora is purified. So because of that, Rabbi say, what is the halacha? So Torah says, Mitzora, you have to come to the Beis Hamikdash and you have to go ahead and insert your right thumb, your right toe. So therefore the Torah says, by Mitzora, you have to insert parts of your body into the Mikdash. So the Gemara is suggesting over here, once there's a heter for the Mitzora for a saras, by definition, ultimately, again, he is permitted to enter the harabayis even if he's a bal keri as well. In other words, what the Gemara essentially is answering is, once a more severe form of tumah ultimately is permitted, then what? A lesser form of tumah is permitted as well. That seems to be the answer of the Gemara over here. Amar Rav Yosef says, well, if that's the case, Kasavar Ula, according to this logic, Rabbi saying, so Ula would say as follows. So we'll say, remember, I want to point out, Ula is of the opinion that bia b'mikzah shmei bia, that ultimately, again, if you're tamei, even if you just insert your hands, but your body stays on the outside, that is a violation. That is a violation. The Gemara now is suggesting that Mitzora is the exception because the Torah gives the Mitzora the license to insert part of his body into the Beis Hamikdash, even though he's tamei, in order to become tahor. And once he's permitted to do that as a Mitzora, then even if he subsequently becomes a bal keri, that keri tumah is set aside as well. Rav Yosef says, just using that logic, Kasava Ula must hold, Ruban Zavin. If the majority of Klal Yisrael became a Zav, V'na'asu Tmei Mesim, and then they also became Tmei Mesim, Hoil v'hutra l'tumasan, hutra l'zivasan. I will say we're going to see that the halacha is that if you have a situation where the majority of Klal Yisrael became Tamei Meis, then what's the halacha? I will say 51% of the Klal becomes Tamei, then Tuma hutra b'tzibor. Then essentially the laws of Tuma are lifted. Rav Yosef wants to say as follows, that using Ula's logic, if let's say the majority of Klal Yisrael became Zavin, then I will say in that case, we would not say that because the majority of Klal Yisrael became Zavin, therefore Tumah Hutra B'tzibor. Rather, let's say they wouldn't do Karban Pesach, but then they become Tmei Mesim. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Hoil v'hutra l'tumas and hutra l'zivasan. Using this logic, you would say, once Tumah Hutra B'tzibor for Tumas Meis, then their Tumas Zivos would also be lifted. Amar le Abaye says, how can you compare that? Mi dami, Tumah ishtaroi, Ziba lo ishtaroi. We'll say Tumah is Hutra B'tzibor, Zivos is not Hutra B'tzibor. Again, we'll define these concepts as well. Maybe this is what you meant to say. Ruban Tmei Mesim Enasu Zavim, if the majority of Klal Yisrael were Tmei Mesim, and then became Zavim, Hoil v'Hutra l'tumasan, Hutra l'zivasan. It must be that what? Once their Tumah was Hutter, so too they would go ahead and become, so too their Zivos would be lifted as well. In. Ultimately, again, say, yes, that's what I meant to say. All right, so we'll stop over here for today, but just understand, we're kind of leaving off in the middle of our discussion over here, which is a dramatic discussion, ultimately regarding partial entry into the Beis HaMikdash in a state of Tumah. Do we say that the only time there's a prohibition to enter into the Beis HaMikdash is when it's a full body entry, but if your hands just enter, ultimately again it's going to be fine? Or do we say no, bia b'miktzah shmei bia, even partial entry ultimately again is problematic? The Metzora seems to indicate to us that partial entry is permitted, yet again what we seem to be saying over here is that no, Metzora may be the exception simply because the Torah provides a license for his partial entry, but under normal circumstances partial entry is problematic. In Meretz Hashem we'll continue with this tomorrow.